Radio is broadcast on Mark Levin Show channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, I try to be ahead of the news cycle, try and stay on top of issues that I think are of some import, some of enormous importance. And so, while we'll play with Mickey Mouse issues from time to time, today is not that day. Now we have North Korea firing another missile over Japan, intercontinental ballistic missile. And as I continue to study this issue, they have, it's believed, up to 60 nuclear warheads. And now you can see they have a hydrogen bomb capability too. So they have a delivery system, and they have the capacity to put nuclear warheads on ICBMs. In another part of the world, we have the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime is a regime that has as its purpose to destroy its neighbors and, it says, to destroy America. And so we have an Iranian regime which is working feverishly to acquire and build ICBMs with nuclear warheads. So we have two of the most dangerous, genocidal regimes on the face of the earth. One has nuclear weapons, and the other one is on a fast track to get nuclear weapons, thanks in many respects to Barack Obama and his people. And I might add, to a Republican Congress that decided this shouldn't be treated as a treaty, but should be treated as just a typical deal. Now, there are things going on behind the scenes that you need to know about when it comes to Iran. And of all places, the left-wing news site Politico is telling us about it. You have former Obama administration officials now working over the media, working over members of Congress to protect the Iranian deal. Despite the fact that there are numerous Iranian violations, including the range of the nuclear-related violations, the ballistic missile launches, the transfer of arms, the President of the United States has a multiplicity of points that he can raise demonstrating violations by the Iranians of the arrangement with the UN resolution, of the arrangement with the Congress, particularly the United States Senate, and therefore violations of this so-called deal. Now, he has the power to reject the deal, to just drop it, because it's not a treaty. Also, he has the power to submit it to the Senate under Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 of the Constitution as a treaty, and to tell the Senate, okay, you need 67 votes, are you in or out? And there are other triggering mechanisms in this process, too. And I'm not going to get into the weeds and go through all of it. It's unnecessary. We had a gentleman on this program. I've not heard from him since. He also worked at Politico. I believe his name was Meyer. And he wrote a rather extensive piece. And I had him on the program. And he's kind of disappeared, hasn't he, Mr. Producer? He wrote an extensive piece on individuals who were basically given immunity, if you will, if not legally, but effectively, by the United States government, including one individual who had passed nuclear technological information onto the Iranian regime by the Obama administration. The Obama administration also made secret deals, side deals they called them. This is one of the reasons a matter like this should be presented to the Senate under the full light of day for the broader body politic to know what's taking place. Obama also canceled all individual sanctions that had been put in place by prior administrations, Bush and so forth, against the Iranians. And so they really greased the skids for this deal, which wound up giving the Iranian regime, the United States and the other countries, $150 billion, give or take. And by the way, almost $1 billion of that has now been transferred to Hezbollah, a notorious terrorist organization. They're also using commercial aircraft, including Boeing aircraft, to move around kinds of technological material and so forth that they're not supposed to. So they're lying, just as the North Koreans lied in order to acquire their nuclear weaponry. We are moving into a new era here, and it is a very frightening era. We have, in the case of North Korea, China, and to a lesser extent Russia, but definitely China, having assisted and still assisting the North Korean regime in the perfection of its ICBMs and the perfection of its nuclear program. In the past, it was understood that the big powers that had nuclear weapons would work together to prevent these other regimes from getting them. That's not the case right now. That's not the case right now. Here's the piece in Politico. Is this boring, everybody? I know. Do you want me to talk about that lady on ESPN that's all over the Internet with her racist comments about the president? Hasn't that been beaten to death today? She's a disgrace. I got it. You don't need to hear from me on it. How many more times do you need to hear about it? But this is from Politico. Democratic insiders try to stop Trump from risking war with former president's tacit blessing. From risking war? The former president, Obama, is the one that created this scenario. As President Trump threatens to blow up the Iran nuclear deal, Obama administration alumni are mobilizing to defend it. One-time aides to Barack Obama are holding meetings, contacting lawmakers, and working the media in an urgent bid to prevent the dismantling of one of the former president's signature foreign policy achievements. It's not an achievement. It's a disgrace. And yes, the reporter writes, Obama is well aware of their efforts. It's a loosely coordinated fight they successfully waged from the White House against congressional Republicans who repeatedly tried to scupper the deal. It's also a battle they have hoped to avoid. After slamming the deal as a candidate, Trump has already passed multiple chances to upend it. Well, let's hope he doesn't pass up another one. But now the former Obama hands, many of whom spent several grinding all-nighters sealing the agreement. You know, this is amazing. Like we're supposed to sit here and feel sympathy for these fools. Fear Trump is prepared to sabotage it this fall. So now, if Trump takes a different position, and in my view, the correct position, he's sabotaging it. The nuclear deal is something concrete that is a target, something that a lot of us feel was a major achievement and strongly disagree with the critics about, said Robert Malley, a former top advisor to Obama on Middle East issues. And we care because of the consequences that can flow from unraveling the deal. What? The Iranians may get nukes and ICBMs? Those consequences, the Obama aides stress, include a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, severe damage to America's diplomatic standing, or worse. Nonsense. Hard to see how abandoning the deal doesn't lead to war, Obama's former UN ambassador Samantha Power tweeted Monday. Really? Well, let's see. What is Iran up to? I think they're involved in wars right now, aren't they? They overthrew the government in Yemen, are trying to take over that area. They're basically conducting a satellite war with Saudi Arabia. What else is Iran doing? It's arming to the teeth Hezbollah, which is trying to entrench itself on the border with Israel and Syria, as it has in Lebanon. It also, of course, is involved in the war in Syria, and it says over and over again what it plans to do. In response, some conservatives are complaining about the return of what they called an echo chamber, a pro-nuclear deal talking points and media coverage engineered by the Obama administration in 2015. The 2015 nuclear deal was negotiated by the U.S., Iran, China, Russia, Germany, France, Britain. It is a political arrangement, not a treaty. It gives the Islamic Republic relief from many sanctions in exchange for severe curbs on the country's nuclear program. This is nuts. I did a Levin TV program where I went through all the agreements, promises, back and forth between the United States and North Korea, all of which were intended to prevent North Korea from getting nukes and ICBMs. And we were played through Republican administrations and Democrat administrations. We were played. And they bought time to build their nukes. And the North Koreans are now helping the Iranians with their nukes. And the Iranians are getting material to the North Koreans, despite what the UN Security Council does. So that's what's going on. Is this a boring subject? I mean, I'm sure I could find one that's more fascinating to some people, but this is a matter of life and death. Life and death for us. Now, I had said some months ago that the next war was going to be with Iran. I could be wrong about that. Might be with Korea. But now we're not dealing with merely conventional weapons here in the case of North Korea. We're dealing with big-time weapons. And it is a big-time problem. And that's why you hearken back to recent history and you see what Reagan did when it came to the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had very, very big nuclear warheads and very, very powerful ICBMs that could hit any part of the world. And he was told, cut deals, cut deals, cut deals, cut deals. And he was prepared to cut deals. And he was also told, don't poke the bear in the eye. Don't poke the bear in the eye. Reagan was no fool. But on the other hand, he was not prepared to capitulate. He was elected president for a reason. He's one of our greatest presidents for a reason. And he decided he was going to destroy the Soviet Union, and hopefully without firing a bullet. And that's what he went about to do. Not contain the Soviet Union, but end it. And he ended it through a combination of military moves and economic moves. And he was very unpopular there for a while with his military moves. His Pershing II missiles in West Germany at the time, his modernization of the American nuclear arsenal with MX missiles, Tridents, and so forth. His massive buildup of the United States military, he was attacked for this. His promotion of the Strategic Defense Initiative, which they tried to turn into some kind of a comic book affair. And he was right about all of it, and the left was wrong about all of it. I would encourage this administration to scuttle, scupper, or scuttle this Iranian deal. And I would encourage this administration to act against North Korea and China. No. Not to attack them. I said act against them. Exactly the way I've talked about before. The way I've talked about multiple times. You can check it on the internet or check it on my archived radio, and I talked about it as recently as a day or two ago. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, the left used to be for opposing the spread of nuclear weapons, against nuclear proliferation. Not anymore. Not anymore. If it's done by Obama, it's okay. What this deal will do is accelerate nuclear proliferation, particularly in the Middle East, because it ensures that by the end of the deal, and the deal is a temporary deal, it ends in 10 years, Iran will be able to build its nukes, perfect them, as well as its ICBMs. Because, you see, under this deal, Iran was able to keep its vast nuclear infrastructure, and it was able to keep its missile program. And Iran's now able to sell more of its oil around the world. In addition to the $150 billion we talk about, that brings in $300 to $400 billion. And as I say, by design, it's temporary. So as soon as the lid is lifted, Iran will have its nuclear weapons, in essence. And Iran's already violated the deal. It will not allow the UN to inspect certain of its military sites, which is where it does most of the work. We talked about that last week. Well, Mark, what should have been done? We know what should have been done. Sanctions, actually, that the Bush administration put in place were actually working. And so, if anything, more sanctions, broader sanctions, tougher sanctions should have been in place. The economy was choking in Iran. The economy in Iran was choking. What else should have been done? Well, when the people rose up against that regime, you'll recall, Barack Obama sat on his hands for 10 days. For 10 days, as they were being butchered and tortured and thrown into gulags, God knows what happened to them, he sat on his hands. Having called for the overthrow of the regime, the people rose up and they were shot down. Let's go to Sean, Orange County, California, Sirius Satellite. Go.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for taking me. Just really quick, I think that the way this is being presented, for example, someone who's, first of all, from Iranian descent and atheist, so I have nothing but disdain for the regime, and I'm critical about Obama.
All right, let's slow down. You're Iranian and an atheist, and this has exactly what to do with this subject.
But a lot of the decisions have been made early on. But at the end of the day, again, we can't bog down for the details of the deal. But the deal to say that it assures that the regime has a nuclear bomb or that it gets $150 billion, which was the regime. I know, again, it's an illegitimate regime. I would love for there to be regime change. And I always said Bush's biggest mistake was Iraq before Iran, but I'm American first. And we don't have the resources to do all that and to stay there. And
all right, but I'm not even following. We don't have the resources to do all of what?
To support a regime change like that. All I'm saying is that
the regime was being changed, and we wouldn't back it. Remember the. Okay, go ahead. You obviously have something brilliant to tell us, other than you're an atheist. Can you please tell me what your brilliant point is?
Okay, my only point is that to say that Obama assured them that they're going to have a nuclear bomb and that this deal paves their way, we're still going to have a one-year breakout period where we can strike them if everything goes...
Okay, pay attention to me, because I'm tired of the BS. I've heard this with North Korea time and time again, and you're sitting there out in California, and you're going to tell us, hey, look, they have a one-year breakout period. Do you think this regime is sitting there paying attention to the rules? Do you? Are you that dumb, really?
Do
you think they're sitting around saying, wow, don't do this, don't do... They already will not allow inspections. They're already conducting themselves in ways they're not allowed to, like overthrowing other regimes and so forth. Now, either we get it through our heads, particularly you liberal, you liberal types, either we get it through our heads that these people, these regimes are evil, or they're going to destroy us. Now, I don't want you to think, and most of you don't, that most of the callers into this program are like the last guy or some of these other guys that I'm going to bring on, but I move them to the front of the line because I believe in affirmative action for liberals on this program to prove points. Mike, Denver, XM Satellite. Yes, Mike.
Hi, Mr. Levin, long-time listener, huge fan. I'd like to say something and have you respond to it. I don't claim to be an expert in geopolitics and all that stuff. I feel like the Iran deal and what's happening in North Korea right now should be viewed differently in the sense that if Iran gets a nuclear weapon and they use it, they're going to use it to destroy Israel. And what they can gain from that is empowering more countries like them to continue the holy fight of jihad and what Allah wants. I don't see what North Korea has to gain by developing a nuclear missile and sending it out into South Korea. Long-time listener, huge.
Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
All right, turn your radio off. That's number one.
Yeah, my bad.
Number two, you don't see what North Korea has to gain?
I don't see what they have to gain from it, because if they do end up delivering...
Let me ask you that. What did Hitler have to gain by invading Russia?
That's a very good question.
Well, why did he do it?
Well, he wanted to conquer the entire world.
Yeah, and he had an alliance pact with Russia, right?
See.
But he invaded Russia because he thought he could take Russia.
Yes.
And he thought no one would do anything about it. Well, obviously he was wrong.
So
there are lots of evil people who have evil intent, And for us to sit back here and say, I don't see any reason why they would fire a nuke into South Korea and so forth and so on. He's talking about firing nukes at us.
I agree.
He's one person. He could have, he could be a nut job. He could be the most brilliant man on the face of the earth. But whatever his reason, it really doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't. And if he was to develop...
Hold on now. And when you look at history, history's filled with people like this, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, well, that answers your question.
It doesn't to a certain extent. By him shooting off a nuclear missile to South Korea or to the United States, there are a lot of other countries that would rain hell upon North Korea. And
no, there aren't. There's only one, us.
Well, I don't think China wants a nuclear war anywhere.
I don't think China would rain nuclear weapons against North Korea. That would be absurd.
Why would it be absurd?
Because they're not going to attack an ally with nuclear weapons.
Well, I think that...
It's a puppet regime. They're not going to attack it. I was with you right till here. Then we fell off the edge of the earth. Thank you for your call, sir. Uh-oh. Is this going to be a weird Friday? I don't know. Let's continue. Brian, Salt Lake City, the Mark Levin app. Go.
Hey, Mark. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you.
This is just another day.
Are you sure you're not Representative Steve King? You sound a lot like Representative Steve King to me.
Well, thank you, but no, I definitely.
But at least you don't sound like Peter King. Anyway, go ahead.
This is just another day one promise that Trump's flip-flopped on. He's allowing McMaster's and the Obama holdovers to set the agenda, just like he has on DACA, just like he has on a lot of the other promises that he's broken.
Who did you vote for?
I voted for Trump. I was squarely in the pocket.
Hold on now. Who did you vote for in the primaries?
In the primaries, I'd like to have seen Ted Cruz. I think Ted Cruz is a man that stands by his ideology. I think that he has principle. But I don't think he can win against
But
Hillary.
how come Ted Cruz hasn't said anything like you've said?
Ted Cruz, I personally kind of think that
Ted Cruz gets along pretty well right now with Donald Trump, doesn't he?
He does. I think he's holding out. Maybe he's getting the Supreme Court.
Okay, before we go into fantasy land, I said Ted Cruz hasn't been as harsh on Trump as you have, has he?
No, he hasn't.
Mm-hmm. All right, my friend, I appreciate your call. Let's keep going. Eric, Westchester, Pennsylvania, Sirius Satellite, go.
Hi, Mark. It's really awesome to talk to you. I've been listening to you for like 10 years. But I just wanted to make a quick comment about North Korea.
Yes,
and
sir.
I don't understand why the Trump administration is just playing games, waiting for them to make the first move, when we should just take out all the artillery that are pointed at North Korea in Seoul. I mean, pointed at Seoul from the demarcation line. And
all right, wait. Slow down a second. It's not so easy. They now have nuclear weapons and ICBMs. That is the capacity to fire a nuke in the South Korea. Number two, Seoul, South Korea, which is a metropolitan area of about 20 or 25 million people, is 35 miles from the DMZ. Number three, you might be familiar with the fact that we already fought a war with Korea, didn't we? We fought a war with North Korea. And the Chinese came over the border, and we lost 48,000 men. And it's not so simple as let's just take out the artillery here and take out the artillery here and do this here and do this over there. It doesn't work that way.
it's an important point that's different from then in the 50s and now. China's economy is inextricably linked to ours. And like you were talking about before, yesterday or maybe the day before, about how if Trump just increases the pressure with regard to...
Let's slow down a second. China's military today is no match for ours. But it's 1,000 times stronger than it was when we fought the Korean War. And North Korea now has nukes, as does China. No, and I don't think Reagan would do what you're saying, let alone Trump do what you're saying, just start hitting military sites in North Korea. It's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. There are ways short of that to bring down the mothership, that is China, or to bring it to its knees, whether it likes it or not. You don't start firing into their military sites and so forth and so on unless you're ready for a massive war.
But don't you think we're going to end up there at some point anyways?
Well, we'll certainly end up there if we start doing it.
Yes, sir.
Now, do you understand what that entails? It's not the voluntary military now. People say, we're tired of war, and I say, you're not tired of anything. You're not involved in it.
The draft.
The vast majority of it's not our kids and grandkids over there, but what's going to happen is we'll have a draft.
Yes, sir.
And we'll have all kinds of other things going on in this country, and it is the wrong way to go. The right way to go, at least to some extent, as I think I've outlined from my own, perspective, as pedestrian as it may be, but studying what Reagan did with the Soviet Union, it is unnecessary. It is absolutely unnecessary.
Yes, sir.
Were you in the military?
No, sir.
You're very polite with the yes, sir stuff. Where'd you get that from?
Valley Forge Military Academy.
And I know exactly where that is. How about that?
Really?
Well, of course. I'm from Philadelphia.
All right, you know what? Yeah, I do know that.
I'm from Cheltenham Township, Elkins Park.
Okay, wow. Can't believe you guys. Wow, sorry.
All right, Eric. God bless you, my friend. Thank you. Oh, yes. In the home we used to live in, there's now there's a statue of sorts of me standing there honoring me. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? Yeah, not really. No, there's not. Probably a fire hydrant, and the dogs probably use it. I went to Cheltenham High School. I've said this before. We've had many famous people went to Cheltenham High School, including Bibi Netanyahu and his older brother. And they have a Hall of Fame there, and they've had all kinds of guys. Reggie Jackson, the former Inspector General of the Justice Department, this, that, and the other. But never me. It's hilarious. And not only that, I was a school board member who, with the other school board members, oversaw Cheltenham High School. There were 9 of us. But the votes were always 8-1 or 7-2. I was in the minority. I was the youngest ever elected to a school board at that time in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I was a tax cutter. And I went after the teachers' union. So I was very unpopular, except with the people of the community. We had our own tax revolt, 1979, 1980. Before there was a Tea Party, we had our Tea Party. Oh, yes, indeed. Brian, Stafford, Virginia, Sirius Satellite, go.
How you doing, sir? It's an honor and privilege to talk to you.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, what's your opinion on this? I'm just curious, when is enough with these liberal Democrats and North Korea and all this stuff that's going on right now with Trump? What's the breaking point for conservatives?
Now, which is it? You asking about liberals or conservatives?
No, with liberals,
Well, it's never enough for liberals. It's never enough. It's never going to be enough. If you ask a liberal today, what does it look like at the end of their rainbow? In other words, health care and open borders and redistribution of wealth and left-wing judges and massive taxes and all the rest. When do we know when we've reached paradise? And, of course, the answer is never. Because you don't reach paradise. It's hell on earth. And they keep tinkering, they keep social engineering, and they will never stop coercing, and they will never stop pushing us around. It was C.S. Lewis, and I paraphrase him, who said, who the most dangerous people on the earth are? It's the liberal who actually believes that what they're doing is good for society because they'll never stop. But I disagree with them slightly because I believe a lot of them don't even care for this society. They seek to destroy it. So to answer your question, they will never stop. And that's why, this battle between liberty and tyranny, it goes on in perpetuity. And unfortunately, more times than not, tyranny wins. Because people are not resolute, or people want freebies, or people are persuaded by demagogues, or what have you. I'm sorry, Brian. I know it's Friday. You want to go into Saturday. What else can I tell you?
No, that's it. Just I was wondering, because I'm a conservative myself, and I was just wondering what we could do as conservatives, Because you hear all these other great conservatives talk, it just seems like we keep getting hammered and hammered and hammered. And you look at the thing like what was going on with Ben Shapiro out in, was at Berkeley there?
Yeah.
And it's like, what can we do as conservatives,
Well, you should join the Convention of States movement. There's 2.5 million people who've joined it. That would help.
Oh, wow.
And we definitely need it in this state because we have liberals and a few phony knucklehead pseudo-conservatives who are blocking us in the state Senate and the state assembly. So you might consider doing that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your call. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know Constitution Day is Sunday? Isn't that the 17th, Rich? I think it is. And we celebrate Constitution Day every September. And I know you value the Constitution and the rights it secures, but we really need to know the basics about it. And look, you can't really celebrate something if you don't. Hillsdale College wants you to know the foundations of your freedoms. So Hillsdale has brought back for a limited time their free online course, Introduction to the Constitution. Now, you can take the course at your own pace, in the comfort of your own home or with family, friends, even your book club or small group or your church group. Each lesson is under 15 minutes long, and now you can download a free course companion booklet that includes discussion questions for hosting your own Constitution study group. It's all at levinforhillsdale.com. That's Levin for Hillsdale.com. The course and study guide are free. They're offered as part of Hillsdale's mission to educate Americans nationwide for liberty. How often do politicians talk about liberty, by the way? Almost never, right? Once you register, you can watch the lessons anytime you want. So sign up now in honor of Constitution Day. Pursue truth, defend liberty with Hillsdale College. Sign up while you still can. Go to levinforhillsdale.com. That's Levin for Hillsdale.com. The federal judges are on the loose. Oh, no, Jeff Sessions, Attorney General of the United States, you can't withhold money from sanctuary cities. No, that would violate something. What? I don't know. And there's even a worse one I'm going to get to later today because it's a big deal as far as I'm concerned. Let us go to Charlie, Milton, Georgia, the great WYAY. Go.
Yes, sir. During the last part of Reagan's administration, I went into the Army and then into the Navy out of college and served under Bush and then under the first couple of years of Clinton, 87 to 93. And what I did, not to bore anybody, but we gathered intelligence. And I hate to hesitate to say that, it was more like information. So we would take the information and pass it up the chain of command to those that would make the decisions about what we should do and things like that. For instance, the Gulf War, we're sitting in a rapid deployment base on Cyprus waiting for a word to go to Baghdad to do regime change, and we never got the word. But I can take this further back to Carter. And what I mean, the point I'm trying to make, and then I'll listen to what you have to say, because I really like your comments about, your feedback on it. But with Carter and with the Iranian hostages in Tehran, we hesitated. We did nothing for 400-plus days, except for, we tried to go, and then there was a disaster with a plane, and we lost some soldiers, some guys then. And then when Reagan gets elected, I think the Iranians knew what they had with Reagan is that he would not hesitate. And the information that we gathered, now that was before my time, I was still in school.
Well, they released the hostages immediately, essentially when he was being sworn in.
Because they knew Reagan wouldn't hesitate. That's the problem we have. Is that the problems with Carter, and then we had a little bit with maybe with Bush, a little bit with Iraq, the first Gulf War, Desert Storm.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Right, but then with Clinton, with hesitation leads to destruction. If you say you're going to do something, first of all, you shouldn't really say it. You keep that stuff under wraps. There's things that we gathered information.
Okay, apply it to North Korea or Iran. Go ahead.
Okay. As far as North Korea, the guy keeps launching missiles. Trump says, you launch another missile, we're going to do something. We haven't done anything yet. Shoot that sucker out of the sky. If we've got the technology to do it, then make a point.
How do you know the technology is perfected enough to shoot an ICBM out of the sky? I've been reading up on this, too, and I'm not 100% sure of that, and neither are they.
I've been out of the game since '93, so I don't. But I guess we won't know until we shoot one out of the sky.
Well, the problem is if you shoot and you miss,
right. Well, they got self-destruct buttons on them. I know that much.
Okay, what I'm saying is if you shoot and you miss, then you encourage more of this behavior, right?
are correct.
And so I'm sure what they're doing is they're sitting around saying, geez, this thing's been underfunded for decades under Democrats and Republicans. Here we are. We got to figure out if we're going to shoot it out of the sky, we got to make sure we hit the damn thing. And we're not sure with 100%, accuracy that we will hit the damn thing.
If only people had followed under Reagan's footsteps. Reagan was a genius.
I
Ahead
agree.
of his time. And Bush didn't take it far enough, and then Clinton got in there, and all he was worried about was the next skirt coming along his way.
But the Democrats have slashed our strategic defense capabilities every time they're in there. And even now, even the Trump budget doesn't significantly increase. It's certainly not enough. And yet, this is a defensive system, and it shouldn't even offend the left. But apparently everything offends the left. All right, Charlie, thanks for your call, my friend. Joe, Springfield, Missouri, XM Satellite, go.
Hi, Mark. This is Joe in Springfield.
Yes, sir.
My question is, what happened to the
Uh-oh.
Are we able to track this money? Did Obama take $10 billion off the top? Where are they spending the money?
Do I understand your question to be the money that the Iranians got, we're not able to really track it, and you're asking me if Obama took some of the money?
Obama take some of the money? Does he get some kickback?
No, he didn't take any. Thanks for your call. Mr. Call Screener, I'm not taking calls from Area 51 now, okay? As bad as Obama is, and he is bad, and he was a disaster. No, I don't think he took $10 billion off the top, and he doesn't have to. He's raking it in right now, pretending to write books and so forth. He'll be a very, very wealthy man, just like Al Gore. Look at Al Gore. Do they come any dumber than Al Gore? The guy's worth like $200 million. The Democrats take care of their people. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We have a lot of callers, full board. We want to get into this, and we will continue with it, but I want to add a few other things. Susan Rice. You can leave it to some of these Republicans, particularly in the House, but also in the Senate, to give this person cover. All this talk about Trey Gowdy, what a great guy he is, how outstanding he is. What has this guy accomplished since he's been in the House? Gives good speeches, but when it comes to follow-up, I don't see it. I don't see it at all. There's a good piece in National Review by David French and a good piece in the Federalist, Federalist.com, by David Harsanyi. And let me go to the latter. You know what? Before we do that, let us play this audio from March 22, 2017. Not that long ago, right? Relatively few months ago, and this year. It's on PBS, Judy Woodruff talking to Susan Rice about unmasking. Okay, remember that issue? Unmasking? That is, obtaining the names of individuals in intercepts and having them revealed. And then it turns out circulated to a number of federal intelligence-related national security agencies. Here's that back and forth. Cut 6, go.
In the last few hours, we've been following a disclosure by the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Levin, that in essence, during the final days of the Obama administration, during the transition after President Trump had been elected, that he and the people around him may have been caught up in surveillance of foreign individuals and that their identities may have been disclosed. Do you know anything about this?
I know nothing about this. I was surprised to see reports from Chairman Nunes on that count today.
Okay, I know nothing about this. That's a definitive statement. I know nothing about this. That's 5 words, right? 5 words. So, Harsanyi, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If not, sorry. At the Federalist. On March 22, Representative David Nunes Devin Nunes, made his these guys, they have to show that they're really objective. So these are their words, not mine. Made his ham-fisted disclosure that the Obama administration had conducted incidental surveillance collection and unmasking of Trump administration officials. It was a revelation that ignited widespread criticism from nearly every corner of Washington, not from me. I've seen intelligence reports that clearly show the president-elect and his team were, I guess, at least monitored, the House Intel chairman said at the time. Looks to me like it was all legally collected, but it was essentially a lot of information on the president-elect and his transition team and what they were doing. Nunes went on to claim that the information was spread across a number of agencies and had, quote, little or no apparent intelligence value, unquote. He goes on, perhaps Nunes' reasons were partisan. Perhaps his framing was exaggerated. We'll see. But if CNN's reporting is correct, everything Nunes claimed that day was basically true, which is a lot more than we can say for others. On the same day, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice was interviewed by PBS's Judy Woodruff. I just played it for you. And asked to respond to Nunes' accusation that she had unmasked those Trump officials in the waning days of the Obama administration. And she said, I know nothing about this. I was surprised to see reports from Chairman Nunes on that count today. Right? As we know, he says, Rice wasn't surprised at all. Wednesday, CNN reported that Obama's former National Security Advisor, Susan Rice, told House investigators that she had unmasked those senior Trump officials in an effort to, quote, understand why the Crown Prince of the United Arab Emirates was in New York late last year, unquote. According to the report, the Sheikh Mohammed bin Yahid al-Yabadaba had circumvented some diplomatic courtesy, which apparently was enough justification to spy on American citizens. The meeting had reportedly come on the heels of efforts by the UAE officials to create a back-channel communication between Russia and incoming Trump administration. According to CNN, the get-together, which included Michael Flynn, Jared Kushner, and Steve Bannon, was completely Russia-free. The meeting was about ascertaining the Trump team's view of the region and sharing the UAE's view of the region and what the U.S. role should be, a senior Mideast official told CNN. No one was coming in to sell anything or arrange anything. Now, Trey Gowdy and other House members seem okay with this precedent, so I guess there's nothing to see. I didn't hear anything to believe that she did anything illegal, said Florida Representative Tom Rooney to CNN. Unless Rice or some other Obama official admits to leaking classified information, this statement is surely true. Then again, there's been a constant conflating of legality and abuse by those covering this story. Unmasking is a legitimate power. Few argue it should be illegal. The question is, was it abused for political purposes? When it was convenient, Bernie Sanders, Al Franken, the ACLU, and numerous others on the left warned that Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act could be legally weaponized for political gain. There's no genuine oversight. We're asked to have faith in those in power. Has Susan Rice earned that trust? This, after all, is the woman who went on national television and repeated a bunch of Ben Rhodes-authored falsehoods regarding the September 11, 2012 Benghazi terror attacks, claiming they were a spontaneous reaction to hateful and offensive video. This is the woman who went on PBS to lie about her role in unmasking, although there was apparently nothing wrong with it. Rice didn't tell Woodruff, I can't disclose the kind of sensitive information, or no comment. She told her, I know nothing about this. But that's not what she told the House Intelligence Committee, is it, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, we knew about it, but that was the UAE and this and that and the rest of it. The rest of it. Rice is extraordinarily comfortable lying to the American people, he writes. I'm willing to believe, he says, the worst about the Trump administration. This is a courtesy I try to extend to every administration. So I do hope that Rice explained to the House investigators how this unmasking helped protect Americans from foreign threats, since unmasking is typically reserved for law enforcement and anti-terror or espionage investigations. Otherwise, it sure looks like members of an incoming Republican administration were spied on by a Democratic political operative who happened to find a meeting suspicious. Some of us troglodytes might view this kind of thing as an abuse of power. So it'll be interesting to hear Trey Gowdy and others explain why it wasn't. He's exactly right. So what she said on PBS was not true. I know nothing about this. What she told the House Intelligence Committee is, yes, I asked for the unmasking because the UAE was here and we were concerned about back channels with Russia. That never happened. But she got the names of the Trump officials who were seeking or were involved in the meeting which was of no consequence and nothing wrong with it. And as this gentleman points out, you don't get to unmask the names of people because you're curious about a meeting. There has to be some other basis for it. And moreover, it's mostly law enforcement that seeks unmasking. And so this Susan Rice story is not good enough. It's good enough for Trey Gowdy. It's good enough for Tom Rooney. In other words, it's good enough for these Republicans. But it's not good enough for me or anybody else who's objective and sensible about these matters. Moreover, we're still waiting for Samantha Power, who was allegedly, reportedly involved in unmasking, as our ambassador to the United Nations, which is truly remarkable. But we'll be waiting for Trey Gowdy to get to the bottom of that one. I'm sure he will, after he's done patting himself on the back on the floor of the House of Representatives. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, let's dip into the gene pool a little bit here. Let's see. Tony, Ocean Pines, Maryland, the great WMAL. Go ahead.
How you doing, Mark?
Okay.
On the North Korean thing, I think that probably the best tactic to avoid the United States.
Can you please shut your radio?
Sure. Hold
okay.
on.
This is rule number 1.
Okay. Best tactic for the United States probably doesn't have anything to do with the United States. I think that the way to resolve the problem is to get Japan to rearm in order to protect itself against the nuclear threat that North Korea presents to Japan. That would get Russia.
Let me ask you a question. You know what ICBM means?
Yeah.
What's the first word? What's the first word? Intercontinental?
Correct.
They don't need an intercontinental ballistic missile to hit Japan, do they?
But they don't have any nuclear weapons in Japan.
No, but North Korea does, and they're building intercontinental ballistic missiles
right,
so they can put nuclear warheads on them so they can, if they choose to, reach the United States.
And if Japan...
And your argument, Tony, in Ocean Pines, Maryland, is, well, who cares? That's Asia's problem.
If Japan had nuclear weapons that could reach North Korea, I'm sure they would be able to...
Okay, I've already said I believe they should, and I believe South Korea should, too. But I also believe that people who act and pretend that North Korea, that this is just an Asian thing, when they're building intercontinental ballistic missiles, that they intend to threaten us. You understand?
Yeah, but there's no threat to North Korea.
Okay, number 3. You're going to go to round 3? What's no threat to North Korea?
Who's going to threaten them?
What do you... Thanks for your call. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going on. Who's going to threaten North Korea? What is he talking about? Rich, do you know what he's talking about? I've got nothing. I'm sorry, folks. Don't blame me. I'm doing my best. I'm walking through, I'm doing what I can. We have our new call screener who's filling in, Steve-O. He's doing his best. All right. Let's continue. Alex, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on the Mark Levin app. Go.
Hey, how you doing, Mark? I just want to make a comment on North Korea. I just have this hunch that this is all maybe about a future invasion of South Korea. If they have a viable ICBM capabilities and they continue to strengthen their military, maybe an invasion of South Korea, and then they would...
But isn't North Korea always plotting to one day invade South Korea? Haven't they been plotting to do that since the 1950s? And in fact, didn't they do that once?
I was just thinking maybe this is their new strategy. That's why maybe
to shoot missiles over Japan as a threat to South Korea.
Well, I think they're
to threaten to shoot missiles at Guam, to threaten to shoot missiles into the United States. Let's say you're wrong. Then what?
No, I'm not diminishing the threat to the whole world. I'm just saying maybe their first step is to unify the South Korea peninsula.
Well, maybe it is. So what does that get us?
That doesn't get that's terrible for us, and then it's a continued threat throughout time. But that's why I think China's maybe dragging their feet. Maybe they want to see, in a way, Korea succeed.
Let's all be honest, and reject all the propaganda we're hearing on TV and everywhere else. China is doing this. All the talk that China's lost control of North Korea, China is doing this. China created this.
I agree. And
China is thrilled that North Korea has nukes and South Korea doesn't and Japan doesn't. China is thrilled that 140-some million Japanese are hiding under their desks and under their beds when a missile is shot over their country. China is thrilled that our government is essentially paralyzed over this issue. So this is all about China. I mean, don't get me wrong, North Korea too, but China's not working with us. China is not helping us. This is all about China.
Right. That's why I was suspicious of China the whole time, that this...
Well, you're right.
All they're dealing.
And look at their phony islands that they've created, and they're claiming islands off of the Philippines that they never had. They're claiming islands off of Japan that they never had. They're claiming territorial waters that belong to the Vietnamese. They're making all these claims. They're now they're threatening India through a third, smaller country that sits between the two countries. I mean, China is on the move. And so
yes,
China needs to feel our economic wrath, and China needs to be somewhat encircled. Exactly the kind of thing we did to the Soviet Union.
Yes, sir, I agree. I agree with that.
All right. By the way, Fort Lauderdale, I assume you did okay in the hurricane, right? Pretty well?
Well, I survived. I just got my power turned on today after 5 days with no power, no AC.
See, a lot of people don't realize that. Same with my parents' house. The power got turned on yesterday.
Yeah, the aftermath is almost as bad as the storm itself, if not worse.
Yeah, it's trouble. And did you stay in Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, yes, I did. I hunkered down.
All right. Well, you did okay, right? Somewhat.
Yeah, got nasty, but didn't lose anything.
Let me ask you something. So, do you have shutters on your windows?
No.
So, okay. So, what did you do? The lights went out. The electricity obviously is out, and you're hearing the wind. And I don't care what it is. If that wind's going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, that is scary because the house shakes, right?
Yes. Yeah. The windows shake. Yeah. And you hear the gust coming ahead of time because the tree's behind you, and you know it's coming. And in a couple seconds, then it just like all hell breaks loose. It's sounds like a freight train. And
you wonder if the house is going to withstand it, right?
Yeah. The whole time I was just on pins and needles, just make sure everything's gonna hold up, windows, structure, roof.
And how many hours did that go on for?
Oh, Mark, it was a long time. It started getting bad Sunday night, and it was all, Sunday, late Saturday night or early Sunday morning. It was all day Sunday, and into the night. It was a long storm.
Yeah.
It was about 3 hours of just continuous, but the whole thing got 12 hours. I remember 1:30 in the morning, we were getting really, really strong winds, and I didn't think it was ever going to end.
Yeah, man, that's really scary. All right, thanks for calling. We're glad you're okay, brother. All you Levinites out there, we don't want to lose any of you. Paul, quickly, Pinehurst, North Carolina, WWEB, our great affiliate. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Mr. Levin, for taking
my
call.
Yes, sir.
I had this idea about what do you think of a naval blockade of North Korea, especially searching ships between Iran and North Korea for nuclear material, technology, and weapons?
Well, if we do that, I'm no expert, but if we do that, we need to be prepared for the next step if they shoot at our ships, right?
Correct. And I would also not like to see the North Korean people lose humanitarian aid because I don't think anyone suffered worse than they have.
Well, let me tell you a little secret. Humanitarian aid, for the most part, doesn't get to the people. It gets to the military.
Right.
So does oil get to the military?
You don't believe that's an option?
No, it might be. I don't know enough to know. I mean, it sounds like a possible option, but, I don't know if our force structure is up to it. I just don't know. I don't know if But you have to be prepared for the next step. Okay, we have a blockade, and they attack us. Right? Okay.
Right. But
well, we have to
my
be
worry
ready
is
for
that
that.
An attack might be preemptive, like if we did that first. You know, who knows how China's going to react or Russia's going to react.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't take it off the table. It'd be something I'd run by my generals and strategists. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a bad idea, Paul, as far as I'm concerned. All right. Thank you for your call, my friend. We shall return. Mr. Producer? No? Not more than usual? Mr. Call Screener, do I sound a little grouchy to you today? Well, why do I feel like I am? Is my back hurting me? No, my back is fine. As a matter of fact, no, why do I get into this? I had excellent back surgery. It's really a miracle. Micro back surgery. I don't know, the L5 or whatever it's called. I have a great surgeon. And as you know, the damn thing ruptured the disc, but the nerve isn't completely right. It takes time for it to get back to normal. So what happens, I feel like I'm talking from a nursing home here. I apologize. But what happens, my left foot is always numb, and there is a pain that cuts across the bottom of it. And it's tough to go to sleep. So like this morning, I got up at 5:30. And I couldn't go back to sleep. Or sometimes it's the thigh. So you never know. I'm not complaining. Matter of fact, I'm celebrating our technology and our medicine, and my magnificent surgeon and so forth. So keep that in mind. But, you know, I'm just wondering if I'm in a grouchy mood. Because I feel like it here and there. You know, the Genucel giveaway continues, ladies and gentlemen. And the folks at Chamonix need to empty their warehouses. So order now, and you'll get double your Genucel order free. Genucel is a natural plant stem cell treatment with advanced peptides for the pesky bags and puffiness under the eyes. And with Genucel's immediate effects, you'll see amazing results in about 12 hours. Call now and get double your order of Genucel for free. Genucel is backed by the best customer service in the business and an ironclad 60-day money-back guarantee. That's terrific. And my family uses Genucel, too, and my friends, including my buddy Teddy. And they absolutely love it. But we're not finished. If you call right now, you'll get a 2-month supply of the legendary Deep Firming Serum, also free. Call in the next 20 minutes, and get a free 2-month supply of Esotique RF. That's Chamonix's most popular wrinkle treatment, free. Now that's 4 free gifts. And by the way, I'm not done. Call 800-SKIN-604, 800-SKIN-604. That's the magic number, 800-SKIN-604. Double up on Genucel. Get the Deep Firming Serum and Esotique all free while supplies last. Limited time order. Now, order right now. Shipping is also free, so you can't beat it. It's very simple. Give them a call. 800-SKIN-604, 800-SKIN-604. That's 800-SKIN-604. All right, let's jump in. Brendan, Amarillo, Texas, on the great KIXZ. Go.
I personally am of the mind that we need to open an investigation into Rice. We know from audio evidence that she says one thing in front of Congress, she says one thing in front of the news media, you know, for the public to hear. Mm-hmm. She more or less sounds like a future Democratic presidential candidate.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. No, but you're quite right. And to hear these Republicans say, well, I'm convinced it's okay. What a bunch of losers. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And that's it, and let's move on. No, that's not it, and let's move on. But who the hell's going to investigate her? They control every damn part of the government.
Well, I think you'd actually have to, you know, find somebody outside of the government. It would probably have to be like a public inquest, maybe.
Well, we don't have public inquests. You know, it's not like the Salem witch trials.
That's true. But it would have to come from somebody who's not political, isn't in the government, doesn't have, you know, skin to lose.
Well, I think you're defining the president. At least you were.
I am a Trump supporter, but I'm with you. He's kind of aggravated me to no end the last couple of weeks, and I'm almost the way Sean feels. There's so many Republicans out there that could do so much good, and they're so scared of their own shadow.
All right, my friend. Appreciate your call. I do. By the way, speaking of Sean, my buddy Sean Hannity is one of my best friends. And this year's his 30th year in radio. And he was just elected to the Radio Hall of Fame. So we want to salute him here. Those are big deals. 30 years in the Hall of Fame. Now, if I were going to be on radio 30 years, I would be 75 by the time I retire. I'm not going to be on radio when I'm 75. I'm not going to do it. I'll make way for some of the younger talent out there, if I choose to. But I will choose to. And so we salute our buddy Sean Hannity very, very much. And he deserves every bit of it. Let's continue. Jarrett, Marshall, WVOH. Where is Marshall?
Marshall is about 100 miles due north of Little Rock.
Okay, about how many people live there?
Around 1,500 or so.
1,500. Getting kind of big, isn't it?
Well, you know, we're stretching at the seams right now. So
let me ask you a question. And I mean this in all seriousness, because I've discussed this with my wife. When I retire, I want to get an RV, and I want to drive to a bunch of little towns all over America.
Okay.
Do you have like a main street? Do you have a diner? Do you have stuff like that still?
Yes, there is a square. There is a diner, you know, where you can do that stuff. We still have a few people that whittle on the square. You know, it's still got its hometown, you know, charm to it. So
I want to go to these places. I want to go to these places, and I'm going to do it before the good Lord calls me home. All right, Jarrett, you go right ahead.
Okay, you know what's disgusting to me about Donald Trump? I mean, I know he's in the news.
Uh-oh. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand, you know, where they're not going to take this, you know, opportunity to hold these people accountable. Susan Rice, Hillary Clinton. You know, I don't understand. You know, after he got elected, he was like, well, I'm not going to go after her. And you know what? It's nothing personal against her, but, man, she broke the law. You know, I mean, that's just as obvious as a nose on everybody's face. And we're going to handle her with kid gloves. And I just don't understand that, you know, because...
Let me ask you, do you think you would be handled this way?
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, that's where I was going with it. You know, if I mess up on my taxes or if I break the speed limit, it's on me.
Let alone the Espionage Act.
Exactly. And it's so disheartening to people that have, you know, went out on a limb and voted for him. And, you know, here we are. You know, the whole thing is just a sham because the Republicans, they're not going to do it. They don't have any spine. So, you know, in voting for Donald Trump, we're thinking we're going to get somebody in there that's going to, you know, peel the mask off and be what he says he's going to be. And then, you know, there's no accountability, you know, none whatsoever. You know, they just get a free pass. What it does is it sets a scary precedent for the next administration, you know, that comes in and decides to tweak this or tweak that. And, you know, because there's no accountability, it's just like immigration. You know, you come over here, you don't, you know, you get over here, you get to do your thing, and guess what? Well, nothing's going to happen to you, really.
And then on top of that, you have federal judges who really don't, in some cases, intend to follow the law. They intend to follow their own policy initiatives.
Exactly. You know, they're not held. And bottom line in all this is the law is only good to those who are in power, you know, because it's only going to be applicable for those who are in power to enforce what they want to enforce. It's not going to be, you know, just what it should be, what it was meant to be. And that is what is so disheartening with what's going on right now in America. So,
all right, Jarrett, I appreciate your call, sir. All right, let's keep at this here. Let us go to Rick, Columbia, South Carolina, the great WVOC. Go.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. Listen, I just wanted to remind everybody that we should remember Pearl Harbor. You know, before the Japanese attacked us with that sneak attack, we were trying to limit their imports of steel and oil and all that, and they were actually in talks with us, and then they went ahead and surprised us. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the fat brat over in North Korea would do the same thing.
In what way? What's the parallel?
Well, here we are trying to slap sanctions on them and to get them to come to the table and talk with us. And while we're in the middle of talking, they'll just go ahead and nuke us with an EMP strike or, a missile strike. They'll just go ahead and hit us, and once they've hit us, we're done for.
Well, all I know is we better be in a position. I've talked about my forward placement of the kinds of weapons that I feel we need to place, and the pressure we need to put on China. And I don't just mean threaten them, go to the UN Security Council. I mean execute these decisions, which is, okay, China, your banking system is now going to be punished. We have the power to do these things. Okay, China, we're going to put a carrier fleet right there in the South China Sea, and they're staying there and they ain't moving. Now, what do you think about that? Okay, China and North Korea, we're going to give those 100 nukes that used to be in South Korea back. Even though they're ours, we're going to put them back because the deal was that North Korea wouldn't advance a nuclear program. And, of course, Japan, we want to encourage you to do the same thing. Now, China will freak out. I don't mean lash out. I mean freak out, because China does not want all this offensive power in its region, which right now it pretty much controls. But you've now awakened the sleeping giant, also to go back to your World War II analogy, and now we are awake.
Yes. And we've got to stand strong and be tough and be sincere and stand firm.
Yep. Thank you for your call, my friend. Mark, Portland, Oregon, the great KUFO. Go.
Hey, Mark. Hey, I agree with you 100%. North Korea is just the puppet. China's the puppet master. And we need to deal with China. And this talk about sanctions and stuff, they know how to get around sanctions. And the elitists and the globalists are going to let them get around sanctions.
Well, first of all, China has armed up North Korea. They've all these sanctions on all these years. That's what China's done.
Yep.
So they sit there at the Security Council and they vote with us. And I go, well, what the hell's that all about?
Yep. Well, China's a superpower. What makes them a superpower is their trade with the United States. You want to get their attention.
What makes them powerful is stealing our technology.
Yeah.
They steal our technology.
Embargo their products from the United States. That'll be immediately felt. Immediately.
Well, it's very difficult to do something like that because you can't even tell how many products they have in the United States, how many parts that go into our products in the United States. I'm not one of these protectionist types. I'm just not. What we do with China and the way you punish China is the way Reagan punished the Soviet Union. Yeah. And the way you attack their economy is through their banking system.
Coming in.
Hold on now, listen to me. It'll have a far more direct impact than anything else. Go ahead.
Yeah. But if you stop their ships from coming in, immediately you got their attention. And
we're not going to stop their ships from coming in. And we don't have to stop their ships from coming in. We don't have to have a full-fledged war with China. But thanks for your call. Everybody, we're going from North Korea is not a threat, let Asia handle it, to let's have a shooting war with China. And I'm saying neither of those positions are rational. They're just not. And they're not effective. They're just not effective. China is not Iraq, okay? China's not Syria. So you can't just say we'll take out their military bases, as another caller said, or all we'll do is we'll block their ships and we'll do this and the other. There's no need to do any of that. There's no need to do any of that. We can bring them, in my view, either grab their attention in an effective way or bring them down, even, at least part of their economy, by taking other steps, which I've outlined myself, and other people probably have, who study this day in and day out, probably have some ideas too. Jimmy, Oklahoma. Well, you know what? I got to come back to you, Jimmy. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I learned something shocking from an FBI report recently. Do you know what the average property loss from just one home break-in is? $2,316. $2,316. Now think of it. One burglary. Over $2,000. Now if you tally up all the burglaries in this country, it's worse Total losses in the multi-billions. So with so much to lose, I'm telling you, it's extremely important to protect your home. Try it with Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe protects every door and window in your home. This system is completely wireless, so you can get it up yourself, set it up yourself, without drilling holes in your wall. And you have professional alarm monitoring around the clock ready to send the police. That's just $15 a month. So with Simply Safe, you can be sure that your home and your things are protected. So go to simplysafemark.com. That's simplysafemark.com. You get a special 10% discount when you order today. If you want the security system, you can also visit your local Best Buy. That's simplysafemark.com for 10% off. simplysafemark.com for 10% off. Check them out. I don't understand people who don't have security systems. And I don't understand why people don't put Simply Safe in. I really don't. It's got no wires, no contracts. It's cutting-edge technology. It's so easy to set up. Took me 20 minutes. And it'll get the police to your house as fast as possible, which is fast. And you get 24/7 protection. So this really is a wonderful product and service. SimplySafeMark.com for 10% off. SimplySafeMark.com. All right, let's take a few more calls to round out the hour. The board's been full. Well, the board's always full, but the board's been full on North Korea for much of the night. Jim, our trucker friend in Alabama, Sirius Satellite, go.
Yeah, hi, Mark. You know, I was in the Reagan administration with you. I was in the Air Force back then.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't understand why we have such the history and the guidance of Ronald Reagan. No one wants to follow him. I mean, you look at North Korea is nothing but a tinderbox for China. China, just like you said, they have such a fragile economy. You go after their banking system. But, you know, China looks at us as just like an immature child. They've been around for 4,000 or 5,000 years. They probably don't even think it's fair that over the last 100 years that we're kind of on top. And we form an alliance with India over there, one of the largest democracies in the world, kind of steer industrial development towards them a little bit, work more with them, get them, an alliance with them, as well as Afghanistan, surround them, just like you said. But it's all laid out there by Ronald Reagan, and whether it's China or North Korea or our economy, it's all right there, and no one wants to pay attention to it.
No, because it's so passé to mention Reagan. We're supposed to forget about Reagan, forget about the founders, forget about the Constitution. No, just follow the progressives. They'll tell us what to do, and of course they've created a disastrous situation. Or there's a new ideology being developed out there, being pushed out there, the populism, nationalism. But we know it works. It worked 35 years ago. It destroyed the Soviet Union. It unleashed the American economy. We have the strongest, biggest middle class, working class in any country on the face of the earth due to two things, the Industrial Revolution and Reagan, both of which are built on capitalism, not centralized government. And you're exactly right. We ought to learn from our history. We ought to embrace it as Republicans. You know, we have some of the greatest presidents. Lincoln, Coolidge, Reagan, and we're saying, forget about them. Forget about them. No, I don't want to forget about them.
No, hey, one quick question for you is the God Bless America, the one you play with the gal singing in the orchestra. Who is that? I want to.
Martina McBride.
Martina McBride. Okay, great.
That's the version I like. Other people say, hey, well, there's Kate, Smith. I like that version, so I play the version I like. Now, at home, you can play whatever version you want, of course. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a power-packed full hour left, and I'll see you in a minute.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, London was hit again today. So-called bucket bomb. As the New York Times writes, the bomb was wrapped in a plastic grocery bag concealed in a bucket. It exploded at 8:20 a.m. Friday, British time, at the height of the morning rush. The explosion and panic left 29 people injured, none killed. It's the fifth terror attack in Britain this year, the first to hit London and its most vulnerable point, mass transit, since 2005. And you remember that attack killed 52. I think, unfortunately, these European countries are paying a price for their loose immigration and their refugee policies, and we're not far behind. You have a president who's actually trying to protect our country and deserves enormous credit for it because he's attacked for it, and the courts have attacked him for it as well. ISIS has claimed responsibility for it. Prime Minister Theresa May called the blast a cowardly act, said the national threat level had been raised a notch to critical, the highest. Now, the bomb exploded just after the train drew into Parsons Green, an elevated station in a quiet, affluent part of West London. It burned at least one passenger who was carried away on a stretcher and led to a stampede that injured others. Oh, boy. Stuff is just, it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop. I remember the good old days when immigration meant assimilation and refugees were actual refugees. Now, some are, of course, but some aren't. And the president has been trying to protect this country from exactly this sort of thing, and he's been undermined by leftists every step of the way. Leftists bringing lawsuits, claiming it's a civil rights issue, claiming it's a racist issue. Courts, which have really humiliated themselves, embarrassed themselves. They don't even realize it, but have done great damage to the rule of law in this country. And they're still at it. They're still at it. Federal court today is suggesting that, come October 5th, if you elected officials think that you're going to just be able to drop DACA, well, that's not the case. We may extend it. A federal judge can extend an unconstitutional act by a prior president. This is unprecedented. It is absolutely unprecedented, yet this is what's going on in our country. This is what's going on in our country. These rogue courts. And now, all day long, or at least part of it, the media have been stoking St. Louis. The media really wants some violence in St. Louis. I mean, we just had a hurricane in Texas. We had a hurricane in Florida. Now, how do we keep our ratings up? Now, they're not the only ones responsible, but I can hear them, particularly the television media. What am I talking about? This from Fox News. St. Louis protests turned violent after white cops' acquittal leaves city on edge. Protests in St. Louis turned violent as darkness set in Friday, with at least 4 cops assaulted and numerous demonstrators maced following the acquittal of a white officer and the shooting death of an African-American drug suspect. St. Louis Police Department tweeted Friday evening that the protests are no longer considered peaceful, as protesters threw bottles at officers, smashed police vehicle windows, largely ignored officers' requests to clear a roadway, ultimately leaving at least 4 cops with minor injuries. Let us hope this Black Lives Matter and this Antifa movement don't move in. The governor better be ready with the National Guard just in case. And again, as I say, it's amazing how reporters, media types, were already there. It's like they took the fastest jet on the face of the earth to get to St. Louis. Hundreds of demonstrators took to the streets in St. Louis after a judge found former St. Louis police officer Jason Stokey, Stockey, not guilty during a bench trial, absent a jury at the request of Stokey. He was charged with first-degree murder after he shot Anthony Lamar Smith 5 times in 2011 following a high-speed chase. Stokely said he saw Smith holding a gun and felt like he was in danger. A gun found in Smith's car only had Stokey's DNA on it, prompting the prosecution to allege that it was planted. During the trial, Assistant Circuit Attorney Robert Steele said that policeman dashcam video showed Stokey saying he was going to kill this expletive. Don't you know it? quote-unquote, before shooting him 5 times. Stokely could have been sentenced up to life in prison without parole. He left the St. Louis police force in 2013. Now, the protest sparked concerns for the city of St. Louis, which saw violent riots in nearby Ferguson in 2014. Yep, we're aware of that. St. Louis police said on Twitter that 13 people have been arrested. For the most part, demonstrations were peaceful, but now they're agitators, they said. The agitators have come in. Fears of unrest, well, here you go, prompted the National Guard to be on standby while several downtown businesses sent employees home early, including Wells Fargo, Advisors, Nestle, Purina, Pet Care, and so forth and so on. There you have it. There you have it. You know, the whole rule of law is under attack. The whole rule of law is being destroyed, from the leftist judges when it comes to immigration, the Supreme Court, which is nationalizing issues such as cultural issues. Apparently the American people are incapable of making these decisions for themselves. And now you have the street mobs who will not accept the outcome of a court case. Who will not accept the outcome of a court case. It's quite troubling, isn't it? Do you know who Steve Schmidt is? No, not Mike Schmidt, the great third baseman for the Phillies one time. One of the greatest. Period. No, Steve Schmidt is a consultant hack that used to work for John McCain. Used to be fairly conservative. Now he's just a crackpot. And they drag him on to shows like The Morning Schmo with Mrs. Schmo and MSLSD because he is a predictable buffoon. He's a predictable buffoon who does pretty much what they expect him to do. So I want you to listen to this discussion, okay, about DACA and so forth. Hat tip Newsbusters, cut 4, go.
About to see here is a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of histrionics out of this right-wing media entertainment wing of the Republican Party.
The 12%.
Right.
We're talking about the 12%.
Right.
Well, let me slow you down. And your viewing audience is what? Negative 12% there, Schmo? But I don't know. I mean, this is all positioning and propaganda. Go ahead.
In a country of 330 million peoples, pretty big number.
Hold on. 330 million peoples? I would like Mr. Schmidt to know that people is the plural for people. Now, I guess you can say peoples, like monies, but the proper English is people. Go ahead.
It's not a majority number, and what we're going to find is if these guys don't bend, is that this group of people who've so dominated our politics, injected this anger, this vitriol, they're powerless. Put them out of business. That's what the opportunity right now for this country is.
What does that mean, Steve? How do you put them out of business?
You put them out of business by pretending they have actual influence. That there's a majority of people in this country who subscribe to these absurd positions that are propagated on Breitbart, on the talk radio wing of the Republican Party.
Does anyone even understand what the man is saying? You put them out of business by pretending they have actual influence? You know, I can only speak for myself. When I come behind this microphone, I'm not pretending anything. I give you my opinion. I'll endorse a candidate. I'll tell you what I think and so forth and so on. I don't know why they're so frightened of us. If we only have this tiny, minuscule fraction of the population who care about what we say or what you think out there, my audience, then why even talk about us? Why would you even care if we're in business? Now, this guy is a shrill, useless, loser consultant talking to a shrill, loser, failed radio host who takes up a tiny carbon footprint at MSNBC. Scarborough. Scarborough was the one, you'll recall, during the speech that President Trump was giving to Congress, who was in the audience jumping up and down like a clapping seal. Scarborough is the one who was at the White House meeting with the President of the United States. But apparently something Trump said offended him, so he turned on Trump. Like the clown that he is. So now he brings in a conga line of buffoons, like this guy Steve Schmidt, who's a kook. Put him out of business. Now, how are you going to put us out of business, Steve? With your fascistic tendencies, apparently. We're going to put him out of business. That's what we're going to do. Shut up and sit down, you tub of lard. You clown. Who's raising his voice? You are. Who's the one trying to hype people? You are. You dummy. And by the way, this thing about 12% of the country, this is why you populists out there need to be very, very careful. If you're a true populist, you oppose the Electoral College. If you're a true populist, you support the direct election of senators. If you're a true populist, many of your views come in conflict with the Constitution and the notion of republicanism. Because if you're a true populist, you're more for pure democracy than you are for republicanism. And I'm itching to debate this one day with some of the bigs on the nationalist populist side. Not their staffers, for some of the bigs. We're going to have this debate. The idea that, where did I read this? And who said this? I don't even remember. I read so much. That Hamilton and Jackson have had overlapping ideals. No, they didn't. Hamilton was for a strong central federal government. He helped establish with Washington the National Bank. It was Jefferson and Madison who thought it was utterly unconstitutional. Jackson did all he could to destroy the Second National Bank, and that's exactly what he did. And Jackson was more the agrarian. Like Jefferson and Madison were more agrarians, although they were nothing alike. So it's much more complicated than this surface-level discussion. I really want to get into it with one of these guys. Again, they're senior thinkers. And it would also help, seriously, and I mean this in a great way. I love to debate ideas. I really do. There needs to be some kind of exposition, some kind of really thoughtful, even more than an essay, of this populism nationalism, beyond sort of this progressivism light, this proletariat versus bourgeoisie, the rich versus the poor, the worker versus the mercantilists, and all that class warfare stuff, which we can read from Hegel and Marx and Rousseau. There needs to be something more. And I would like to learn as much as I can about it. The great speech, quote-unquote, not great to me, but great quote-unquote speech by Theodore Roosevelt, was a speech he gave called The New Nationalism. Are you aware of this? The New Nationalism. And Roosevelt was a progressive. And he was introduced to Crowley by Learned Hand. Learned Hand was then a federal district judge. He'd become an appellate judge soon thereafter. But Crowley was a radical progressive. And Theodore Roosevelt was much taken by him. And Theodore Roosevelt would read the New Republic, back then, again, a sort of progressive Bible. And then eventually, when Theodore Roosevelt decided to run for president against his successor, his handpicked successor, his former vice president, Howard Taft, he ran third party in the Bull Moose Party. But the official name was the Progressive Party. So the man who gave the New Nationalism speech, the man who also claimed to be a populist, he ran under the New Progressive Party, the third party. And when you look at the plank of the Progressive Party under Theodore Roosevelt, it's all about more and more direct democracy. It's all about more and more populism. And so this is why I would like to have this discussion. I would like to have this debate, again, at the highest levels. Not with, 18-year-old staffers. That I'm not interested in. But I think it would be fascinating. I really do. All right, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Universities known for being hotbeds of campus protest and liberal activism are struggling with declining enrollments and budget shortfalls. And higher education analysts say that's no coincidence. Take Oberlin College. According to a document leaked to the Oberlin Review, the school student newspaper, the small liberal arts college famous for social justice hoaxes has had trouble attracting and retaining students, missing this year's enrollment mark by 80 and racking up a $5 million budget deficit in the process. William Jacobson, a professor at Cornell Law School, also a friend of mine, who runs the Legal Insurrection blog, said the most obvious culprit in Oberlin's dwindling admissions is relentless social justice warfare. Social justice warfare at Oberlin has been more intense and sustained over a longer period of time than at most schools, and has come to define Oberlin in the media, Mr. Jacobson said. The resulting mockery and derision, even in liberal publications, has damaged the Oberlin brand. Now, surveys support the notion that in the era of Trump, conservatives have become more skeptical about the value of a college degree. The polarizing presidential election was felt in the dip in applicants at some top-tier colleges, such as Ohio's Kenyon College. And it goes on. Now, this is the way the market is supposed to work, ladies and gentlemen. These crackpot left-wing universities, those of you who are parents of young people who are entering college or in college, you should try and, exercise some control over this, particularly if you're contributing to or paying the entire bill. Why subsidize the demise of your own child? Why subsidize the brainwashing of your own child? Why subsidize a tenured professor who is spewing anti-American Marxist crap? Why subsidize a tenured professor who's a racist or a race baiter? There is no reason that we should spend thousands, tens of thousands, semester, 2 semesters, all 4 years, whatever the situation is, paying for our undoing and the undoing of our own kids. This is exactly the way the system ought to work. There are really, really bad colleges, and you should find out what they are, which ones they are, and make sure your kids and your grandkids don't go to those colleges. And over time, they will suffer the consequences. You have choices. You can make choices. Now, I feel the same kind of practice should be available in our public school systems. And that's why Landmark Legal Foundation, among others, has fought for decades to allow, first, kids in poor communities, but I feel like kids in most communities, to attend schools other than their specific school that's assigned to them. I feel the same way when it comes to health care and the Veterans Administration, where vets ought to get vouchers and have at least a limited ability, if not more, to choose various hospitals and doctors and create competition. Competition is the key. Competition is the medicine to all this. Once you have governments straitjacketing the processes, then you have the abuses. Then you have the indoctrination. Then you have the ideology. So it's actually a good thing that enrollment is dropping at schools known for social justice warfare. Can't happen fast enough for me as far as I'm concerned. All right, we'll be right back. Well, I'm sad to say that the media are hyping the protesters and the protesters are hyping the media, and I don't like what I'm seeing as night falls on St. Louis after the ex-cop's acquittal. And I can tell you, I feel almost certain, I hope I'm wrong, that instigators are going to be calling in and going to be showing up. So we'll need to keep an eye on this, won't we, all weekend long? Never ends. Between your work grind and grueling schedule, it's easy to forget about the little things. But whether it's an out-of-the-blue gesture or just because surprise, it doesn't take a lot to make your friend or loved one's day brighter with 1-800-Flowers.com. Nothing tops the excitement of a 1-800-Flowers bouquet. And right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, 1-800-Flowers will give you another dozen, plus a vase, absolutely free. This beautiful bouquet of 24 roses in a rainbow of colors will leave your loved ones stunned without spending a fortune. It's the best of both worlds. These gorgeous roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak, and they're shipped overnight to ensure freshness. When it comes to life's most important moments, only trust 1-800-Flowers. Now, to order a dozen multicolored roses, plus an extra bouquet and vase for just $29.99, right now, while you hear me, do it so you can surprise your loved one. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon and enter code Levin. That's the key if you're going to get the special discount. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code Levin, 1-800-Flowers.com, code Levin. Now imagine doing that right now for your spouse or your girlfriend. Imagine doing that right now. 1-800-Flowers.com, code Levin, Levin. I'll bet they would be incredibly surprised and pleased. Tom, Broadway, North Carolina, on the Mark Levin app. Go.
Hey, Mark. Great talking to you.
Can you talk right into the mouthpiece?
Sorry about that.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of DACA because we don't ever talk about what we need to stop calling them kids because they're not all kids. You know,
That's correct.
And I'd like to see the data on it because if they've actually registered, then we find out who they are. But nobody wants to talk about that. And the stuff I've looked at, 25% of them are actually in Los Angeles County.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's all on there. It is on the website. Deferred Action for Childhood. It's the MPI, Migration Policy Institute. It lists there's 180,000 eligible just in Los Angeles County.
It's incredible. All right, Tom, appreciate your call. We'll walk down the list. John, Fargo, North Dakota, on the Mark Levin app. Go.
Good evening, Mark.
Yes, sir.
I'm 53 years old, and I'm frustrated, but your story about the college in Kansas got me grinning ear to ear because it gives me hope that there are more people out there who are starting to wake up again. You know, I grew up at the tail end of the greatest generation, and I learned to listen to those men and women. Those are people who had to endure things and get things done, which is one thing that this country mystically was always able to do. You know, in World War II, after 9/11, we had Ronald Reagan, who was the greatest president of my time, who always instilled in people like me to start to think, not to wait for the government to do it for you. You go out and do it for yourself and have respect for your country. And when the media wrings their hands about this North Korea thing, and people say, well, maybe we should wait for the government to start an embargo. Well, you know, I disagree. We don't need to be isolationists. But as consumers, the one thing that we could do to get China's attention, when you talk about their economy and how it is tied to our economy in terms of what we purchase, put the Chinese goods back on the shelf for a couple of months if you can live without it by any stretch.
Absolutely.
Because that would send a message to their economy that we're tired of your antics, we're tired of the games with North Korea, and we want to be heard.
Excellent point, John. I appreciate it. Yes, we don't need the government to tell us what to do when we purchase things. Just don't purchase them. Excellent point. Lori, McAllen, Texas, on Sirius Satellite. Go.
Hi, nice to talk to you, Mark. Just wanted to let you know that here in South Texas, we have been affected by DACA. And if it does get legalized, we're going to continue being affected by it. There's very few jobs to begin with. And there's a lot of DACA applicants in the area. If it does become legalized, we're going to be hurting. It's time for the American people to finally get something, you know, back, to get the country
I
back.
think the American people have spoken. I don't know what else we can do. Donald Trump was installed into the presidency, and he made promises, and he needs to uphold them. And if he's going to cut one of these spectacular deals that they talk about, well, he better get that damn southern border secured, I can tell you that.
That's right.
And not later. Up front. All right, McAllen, I appreciate it. Right on the border. Nick, Walla 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 Walla, Washington. The great KGDC. Go.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Nice to talk to you again.
Yes, sir. Yes,
the thing I'm most frustrated about DACA is that, you know, I know he's obviously wobbling on this big time, but I'm just getting sick and tired of hearing the apologists, you know, the people there on the base. I don't like to use the word cult, but I'll use the Trump fan club. They're just making excuses out of it, and it's really, I don't know if they understand.
And they're not helping him. They're not helping him by making excuses for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, the thing is they want to blame this on Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. How is that McConnell's fault? I mean, Trump has, he only has himself to blame for this. Nobody forced him to go talk to Chuck and Nancy.
Yeah, exactly. DACA has nothing to do with McConnell and Ryan in this regard. You're exactly right. It's not like he was trying to get the Republicans to extend it and codify it. It's him reaching out to Chuck and Nancy and saying, let's make a deal.
Right.
And they frankly, they took him to the bank so far.
Yeah, and they talk about, we can't blame Trump because, McConnell can't do this or can't do that. Well, if Trump would let more, and if he was more forceful and say, hey, this is what I want, and if we don't get it, you can't get it done.
And plus, why can't we blame all of them? I don't understand this. I really don't. So in other words, if Ryan isn't doing his job and McConnell isn't doing his job and Trump's not doing his job, we can only blame McConnell and Ryan.
Right. That's really infuriates me because I know that Reagan would, he was a principled man, and I don't see that Trump
All right,
is.
my friend. I appreciate it. I'm not comfortable just dumping all over Trump on this stuff, but it is important that we have, that we criticize him when he's doing things that are opposite of what he promised. There's no question about that. How much time do I have, Rich? No, I don't want to do one more call. How much time do I have? Okay. There's a great piece at Conservative Review by Craig Shirley and his co-author, whose name I can't find here, so sorry, pal. Calling Reagan a pro-amnesty liberal hero is simply Orwellian. Recently, Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced that DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which has, in 5 years' time, allowed around 800,000 illegal youths to live and work in the U.S. without ever going through an application process to actually become a citizen, was a program that Trump once promised only to cancel, which had infuriated Democrats as much as anything. Never intended to be a permanent solution, and Obama said so, even as he himself was operating outside the Constitution and making his own law rather than following it. So President Trump has been bombarded on many sides for his decision, until now apparently reversing it. And as critics continue to assault that original decision, they've picked up a new old tactic. Attack the present by hijacking the past. It's the classic Orwellian cliche of rewriting the past to control the future, and it's irresponsible. This time, and not for the first time, the left once again is invoking conservative icon and hero Ronald Reagan. Recently, Michael Reagan tweeted that his father, and I like Mike Reagan, would not kick the dreamers out of the U.S. He would find a way to work with Congress and lead. Maybe. There are those who work closely with the Gipper who say otherwise. On the other side now is immigration reform activist, liberal businesswoman, and widow of Steve Jobs, Lauren Powell Jobs. Her company, Emerson Collective, has a new television spot that selectively uses Reagan's farewell address, quote, "If there had to be city walls, the walls had doors," unquote, Reagan says in his final address as the President of the United States. And the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. That's how I saw it, and I still see it. It's an effective ad that plays at the hearts of conservatives. Unfortunately for Lauren, it's not quite as cut and dry as she thinks. DACA did not even exist when Reagan was president, and it's a canard to suggest otherwise. Put illegals ahead of legal Americans, Reagan would have gagged at something less than fair play. Do we need another shallow, rich liberal deliberately rewriting American history? Everything Reagan did was set against the backdrop of the Cold War. By the 80s, the Soviet Union specifically and communism generally had been mortal enemies of the U.S. for nearly 40 years. People born during the Cold War were well into adulthood by the Reagan administration, and for their entire lives, communism was the threat. It was an entirely different time when an evil empire was willing to kill millions in order to achieve world control. That was the Reagan context. Where the threat of communism was rampant from Central and South America's Nicaragua to Panama to all of Eastern Europe, Reagan opened his rhetoric. It was 1986 when immigration became an issue at the forefront of the United States, when Reagan signed that act, the 1986 Immigration Reform and Control Act. The Cold War was at its peak. He noted that the legislation was not for the sake of votes or the sake of appeasement. It was American security. And I would encourage you to read this piece as it goes on at some length at Conservative Review, as I've run out of time. But check it out. Calling Reagan a pro-amnesty liberal hero is simply Orwellian. Check it out. Just go to conservativereview.com. Equifax recently announced a breach that could affect 143 million Americans. So far, the organization determined that the credit card numbers for about 200,000 consumers and personal data, including Social Security numbers for about 180,000 consumers, were accessed. Did you know you are 11 times more likely to become a victim of identity fraud if you're notified of a breach? Good thing there's LifeLock. LifeLock detects a wide range of identity threats, threats you may miss by just monitoring your credit, like someone stealing from your 401k. But if there's a problem, a U.S.-based identity restoration specialist will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but LifeLock is the best. And LifeLock can help you see more threats to your identity. Go to LifeLock.com, LifeLock.com, or call 1-800-LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock. Use promo code Levin, that's Levin, for 10% off your LifeLock membership. Protect yourself, folks. This is the best way to do it. Visit LifeLock.com, call 1-800-LifeLock, use promo code Levin, and save 10% right now.
Mark Levin.
Let's go to Ryan, Phoenix, Arizona, on the Mark Levin app. How are you?
Hi, Mark. How are you? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to call you to thank you for being one of the few big, prominent voices in right-wing media who seems to be willing to hold Trump to his promises on immigration. Because me and a lot of my friends have been feeling awfully betrayed the last few days when we hear about the deal he's willing to cut with Pelosi and Schumer, and it's infuriating, Mark.
Well, it is infuriating. By the way, it's conservative media. Although a lot of these people aren't that conservative, are they, Ryan?
No, sometimes they're not.
Well, no, I agree with you. And it's up to conservatives and people who aren't conservative but who were supporting Trump from early on to hold his feet to the fire. In other words, there are forces pulling them to the left, and we need to pull them back. And this is how you do it. You don't just sit back and say, I'm going to defend him no matter what, even if he's breaking a promise. That doesn't help him. That doesn't help him, and it doesn't help the country. How old are you?
I'm 25, sir.
All right, very good. What do you do?
I'm a graduate school student. I'm studying criminal justice and public administration, actually.
Very good. Very interesting. All right, Ryan, I appreciate your call. You take care. Yeah, it's interesting to me anyway. But anyway, I don't think we have time for another call. I really am bothered with myself for not timing that Reagan article properly and reading it to you in full. So I really want to encourage you to go to Conservative Review and read it. It's not because we're praying at Reagan's name and so forth. It's because it's a very, very interesting and accurate piece. All right, every Friday, America by Ray Charles in honor of you. Here we go. This is police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. Good night, Spritey. Good night, Griffey. Good night, Pepsi. Good night, Smokey. And good night, Zelda. Get Al-Qaeda. Get the Taliban. Get ISIS. Get all those cockroaches and subhumans. And check out Levin TV tonight. And I'll see you on the radio next week. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend and be safe.